Remember the last time
I know it's a
I
little bit
wasn't
late.
really patient?
All right. All right, folks, we're starting a pre-dental club meeting this morning. We talked a little bit briefly before I started the recording about the Rake Up Boise activity that we had on Saturday, which went really, really well and gave us some hours for volunteerism for the club, and then also is a great opportunity to volunteer in our community. We also talked about doing a second meeting, one more meeting in December, and we can talk a little bit after we do this part about whether we want to do a social setting one or we want to do a full meeting. So I reached out to Jordan, asking him if Dr. Sanger would be interested in doing an alumni spotlight, which he did. And Dr. Sanger is actually a graduate of Boise State University, so he's an alumni, and he went to the University of Utah School of Dentistry. Were you one of the first class?
Third class.
Third class, okay. So he is now a practicing dentist in the Boise Treasure Valley area. You're at Kuna Smiles.
Yeah, Ken Smiles.
Okay. And so I thought it'd be a really good opportunity for you all to get to know and meet him and kind of learn a little bit more about his story. So maybe you could share with the group about what got you interested in dentistry to begin with.
Yeah. I originally wanted to be a surgeon of some kind. My parents are in healthcare, and so they always harped on me that I should be some kind of doctor. And I did a lot of things with my hands, used a lot of power tools, and so orthopedic surgery seemed fitting for that. And then in high school, I started to think that doesn't sound very fun to go through all that much schooling and all the residency, fellowship, stuff like that. And coincidentally, I also had braces at the same time, and that kind of changed my self-esteem and my outlook on the world, I guess. So I thought, I wonder if I could do orthodontics and do that same thing for a lot of people. So that's kind of what I thought that I would end up doing. Even into college, I thought that I wanted to be an orthodontist. I shadowed a pediatric dentist in college and found out that there's other fun things about dentistry besides just moving teeth and making beautiful smiles. And so I decided I'll just kind of do something general dentistry related and use my skills with my hands and still help people and make beautiful smiles and make people's day, hopefully. Is kind of what I wanted to go for.
Very cool. And so at this point, you are done with school, working in your practice. Can you tell us a little bit about what it's like to be a dentist?
Being a dentist is nothing like you're trained for, unfortunately. Being a dentist, in dental school, being a dentist means that you're really good clinically. And you have a lot of book smarts about different diseases and the causes of things and how to treat things, and how to plan treatment for people. Dentistry in the real world, that takes up about 10% of your time. The other 90% is taken up with running the business, managing your team, financing, marketing, Instagram, running an Instagram account. So being a dentist in the real world is a lot different than what you're trained for.
Okay. What was it like going to dental school at the University of Utah? Was it a good experience?
Yeah, I thought it was good. When I went, the classes were still smaller. My class was the last small class. Now there are classes of 50 students, which is still small comparative to other schools. My class was 27 students though. So we got a lot of one-on-one time with doctors and professors, and we got a lot of freedom clinically. So we got to do a lot more stuff than most students. Yeah.
So it sounds like maybe the orthodontistry kind of changed through your process of learning, or is that still something you're interested in pursuing?
Not so much anymore. To get into an orthodontic residency, you have to basically have a 4.0 GPA in dental school and be involved with every club known to man and be the president of all those clubs, and do research. You basically have to be in the top 1% of dental students in the country to get into an ortho residency, which is fine by me because I didn't really want to do ortho once I got through dental school anyway. So.
All right, I'm going to turn the time over to you all. So please feel free to take your mute off and ask a question. I can also watch the chat. And then we also have, I'm so sorry, I forgot your name. Courtney. Oh, Courtney. Okay.
Courtney, thanks for joining in person.
Yeah, I usually see you with masks. So. All right. Questions for Jordan, for Dr. Sanger? Don't all jump out at once.
What would you choose university to
Well, one, they were the only one that accepted me, so that helps narrow it down. But two, they, I don't know if they have this anymore, but when I went there, they were really planning on doing this 3+1 program. Do they do that still?
Yeah.
I haven't talked to them in a while.
Yeah, they do. They do.
So their idea is that they get you totally ready to be a dentist in the real world within 3 years. And that last year of dental school is spent just doing more or less focusing on whatever things you want to focus on. So for the ortho students, they worked with an orthodontist and they got to do some limited ortho on some of our patients at the dental school, which you don't see that at a lot of schools. Yeah. So that was really cool. They have a really great clinical program and really fantastic clinical doctors.
How many schools did you apply to?
I think I sent out in my first round, I think I sent like 15 applications, and I think I sent 7 or 8 secondary applications. I didn't realize going into applications that they would want to see so many hours spent on lab studies with professors, and they would want to see hundreds and hundreds of hours of volunteer work. I didn't realize they would want to see all those things. So that kind of hurt my chances of getting an interview, unfortunately.
But you got one.
But hey, I got one, got in, which was nice because I think that was the hardest class to get into the country that year. I think there were 700 something applicants for our class. They only accepted 27.
Sure. Other questions? So the first question that Courtney asked was, why Utah? So what else do we got?
What were your DAT scores when you were applying?
If he's willing to share his DAT scores.
Yeah. No, I'm an open book. My PAT score was a 22. And my science score was a 19. So higher than average, but once I got to orientation week with my class, I realized that I was kind of the bottom of the barrel for that. Our class had a really high stat score for everything. GPA, DAT scores, everything was. I had a classmate that got a 28 on the DAT.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah.
But you did very well on the PAT. I mean, a 22 on the PAT is really good. I mean, your perception piece was really, really strong there. And not every school looks at individual scores. Some will look at the composite and some will look at the different individual scores. It just really depends. Did that answer your question, McKenna? Others,
Good.
McKenna's in the application process right now, so.
I will say, I only studied for 3 weeks before I took the DAT. Yeah. I finished my junior year and OChem and just wanted to get it over with and submit my application. So I only studied for 3 weeks and took it thinking my continuous studying and learning throughout the year was going to help. And it did a little bit, but comparing myself to my classmates, the person that got a 28, I think they studied for 3 months. So.
Our typical recommendation, like we've always said, is probably about 8 weeks. 10 for do DAT boot camp, but you know, like last year we had our past president Parker Aldridge, who's at UW. He took 5, partly because he wanted to get his application in, and so he finished his boot camp into 5 weeks. And he was a business major, so he actually felt a little behind the 8 ball with the sciences, and so he wished he would have studied a little bit longer.
Yeah.
So.
Are any of you studying something other than health sciences?
Yeah, your chemistry major.
Nice.
And then we have, I think we have.
I'm a
couple
business.
college majors in there, and somebody who graduated with a business degree. Aiden.
Yeah, I have a business degree already. I'm just doing the science courses now.
Cool.
So Aiden's a post-bac, and is completing his prereqs. Ashley, are you a health science or a biology major?
I'm health
Your health.
study.
McKenna is, Wyatt, your health studies, right?
Yeah, I am, yes.
Yeah, so we have a pretty good smattering.
Yeah, which is good. I think a big part of dentistry is business. Really, the dentists that do the best personally and financially and professionally are ones that own their own office or offices. And you have to have a very good understanding of business to do that. A lot of dentists go into ownership, I've found, and they don't learn as much about business as they should. Dental offices don't fail simply because people always need dental work. The dentists, there are tons of dentists that are awful business owners that never go out of business just because there's always people that need to walk in through that door and see them. So Aiden, that's probably going to help a lot being, you know, with a business background like that.
Other questions? Keep them coming.
What's your number one piece of advice for someone going into middle school?
That's a good question. I would say go into it for the right reasons. It's a lot of time, it's a lot of effort, and it's a lot of debt to get into, especially coming from BSU. Every school you go to, you're going to be out of state tuition. I have about $450,000 of student debt because I was an out-of-state student. And to put that into perspective, I could pay $5,000 a month for 10 years and pay it off in 10 years. That's about the average American household income that I could pay every month. So I would say go into it for the right reasons. Simply wanting to help people isn't enough. Simply wanting to make the money isn't enough. It has to be a combination of reasons to go into it and really enjoy it and do well.
So the question was, what was the best advice that he could give? And that was what he shared. Other questions that might spring from that?
Is there anything else that you didn't know going in that you know now that like us, like people like us should know? And also, if you were to change anything about like your path on your way to becoming a dentist, would there be something that you would do differently, like join a program or whatnot?
Yeah, I learned, once I got into dental school, I learned how awesome the clinical side of it is and how many things that you can do in dentistry. I knew about, for instance, I knew about dental implants beforehand, but I didn't know very much at all. That's one of my favorite things to do. I mean, I love doing that. And that's one of the reasons why I wouldn't want to be an orthodontist. I wouldn't get to do that.
Yeah.
So I learned that there's a whole world of clinical stuff that you can pick and choose to do, which is great. And that can help make your career more fulfilling, more fun, more successful. If I could do it over again, I think I would have worked harder on shadowing more people and surrounded myself with people that were eager to own businesses or own dental offices or be dentists. None of my friends wanted to do that kind of stuff. So that didn't help in my pursuit. And I also probably would have gone to a school that has a dental program for my undergrad. So I could have avoided the out-of-state tuition.
Okay, those are all ideas. Wyatt's actually from Washington, so
Yeah.
he has some options, but on that front, you know, you're working in dentistry now, and knowing with COVID and, you know, all the policies in the pandemic and things like that, some of our students have felt like they have had difficulty, you know, gaining some of those shadowing hours. What advice do you think you could give them about how to gain some of that experience during the pandemic?
Yeah, well, yeah, interesting. Boise doesn't help. The surrounding towns are a bit more conservative and don't really care so much about the COVID pandemic stuff. So that helps going outside of Boise. I've always let people come shadow me, no matter where I'm at. You guys can come shadow me out of Acuna if you want. I know it's not close, but it's there. But I mean, there are tons of dentists in Idaho, in the Treasure Valley. There are tons of dentists. And there are, I mean, there's got to be over 50% that would be willing to let you guys shadow. Yeah, and go shadow specialists too. Don't just shadow general dentists. The dental schools want a letter of recommendation from a general dentist most of the time, but shadow specialists and see what that's like. And because once you get into dental school, the students that are now orthodontists from my class, if they decided that on day 2 of dental school, it was already too late, because the other students that decided it beforehand, they already had an entire game plan of what they were going to do to get into residency.
So what I hear Jordan saying is that the doors are open, it's about asking.
Yeah.
About reaching out and maybe going in person or calling and saying if there's opportunities for those types of experiences.
Yeah.
Other questions?
Do you remember how many shadowing hours you had?
Say that again.
Do you remember how many shadowing hours you had?
Oh, shadowing hours. I think I had like 50. Which to me, I thought, oh, I stood around and did nothing for 50 hours. That's a lot. But dental schools, I mean, I met people on interviews that they had like 300 hours of shadowing time.
50 is the national average. 50 is the national average.
Yeah, I thought 50 was great until I met the people I was up against.
Sure. Sure. Other questions?
So you own your own dentistry right now?
No, I don't. that was the plan. The office in Kuna was a startup office. So we started in August with 0 patients. So we're starting from ground zero, basically, that.
Okay.
And so I didn't have the funding or the ability to do that, but another dentist that doesn't want to practice anymore did. So he funded the whole thing. It's his office, but I'm the only doctor there. And we have a contract that in a few years I'm going to buy it from him. So,
Okay.
so I picked out the wall color. I picked out all the instruments. It took about 20 hours going through a catalog to pick out all the supplies. I picked out the staff. I picked out the carpet. So it's technically mine, just not on paper.
Not like, I know it might be a really personal question, but like on average, like how big of a loan would you need to like have a startup office, say in like Meridian or like somewhere like urban?
Yeah. I mean, it depends on what you want for an office. Kuna Smiles was unique because it was a dental office before. So it was already built, the building was already there, and we already had 4 rooms that were kind of ready to go. They needed some updating. And for Kuna Smiles, it was about $350,000 to start up that office. Supplies was about 60,000 or 70,000 of that. Marketing, we spend close to $10,000 a month on marketing right now, just to get new patients in the door and get butts in chairs, basically. So, but if you wanted to build a standalone office on a new piece of real estate that you bought, you'd be looking at $1 million for sure. Yeah, to buy the land and to get the contractor and build the building and outfit it with all the stuff. Yeah.
One of the things I would also share just from my experience as an academic advisor in this field too is that what Jordan has done in terms of sharing the, you know, the burden with someone who maybe already has a dental office, or, you know, going in and partnering with somebody that might be on their way out into retirement, that they might later be able to buy that from. And then also, you know, it doesn't, I know being urban is nice, but I would say that there's quite a few dentists in the Boise area, and being able to move out of that into a more rural area where there is a huge need, can bring in you're not competing with another office necessarily in those kinds of perspectives. So if someone's starting out, that can be a way to like not sell them with such a huge burden. But you know, the choices are yours, but ultimately a lot of new dentist students after they become dentists will do that. We'll jump on partnerships, and that way they're not saddled with that huge burden of, you know, having their own, you know, having a family, and then on top of that, having that burden of the business too.
Yeah.
So there are lots of ways to do it.
Yeah.
And what I think is really powerful too is what something else has been said is that, you know, you get to interact with a lot of different clinical aspects in the world of dentistry when you go to dental school. And there's more than just orthodontistry and general dentistry. There's so many facets that you can be a part of.
Yeah.
That it doesn't have to be brick and mortar. Okay, I'm going to do a business, and that's what I'm going to do it. That is the normal, most of the concept way that students choose to do that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think looking back on it, I think a good exercise would have been to find out all the specialists, or the specialties, I should say, and then try and shadow at least one doctor in each specialty before dental school. The ADA has 9 specialties that they recognize. I didn't know that before dental school. I didn't know some of them existed.
right.
So that was new.
Well, and we have periodontry and surgery, and then we have, pediatric, and so there's many aspects that you can look at for sure.
Yeah.
Other questions?
So back to the application process, did you get accepted December 1st of your cycle, or was it later on?
I got accepted later on, like in December, towards the end of December, early January, I think, somewhere around New Year's. Utah had put me on a wait list. So I think I was second on the wait list. And when they send out their first round of acceptance letters on December 1st, probably a third of those students are going to say no, that they don't want to go to Utah. And then they start picking people off the wait list.
I do know a student that interviewed later in the cycle that was pulled off, not from Utah, but from another school. So some of them interviewed later in January and February, and some students can get still pulled off.
Yeah, I was pretty bummed that I didn't get more interviews or anything. I was pretty disheartened by that, to be honest, and thought maybe I should look at like another option for my life. But I got in around New Year's. And then once we got to orientation week in, let's see, what was that? Early August, I think, is when we had orientation week. One of my classmates at the end of orientation week decided he didn't want to do it and backed out after sitting through 40 hours of orientation that week. Another week went by and we were one person short in the class. And then at the end of our second week, we had a new student join the class from that wait list.
Yep.
Which that was a very interesting scenario for him.
Mhm.
We did impressions that day and he was wearing a suit.
It happens more than you think. I mean, they're invested in the student, just as the schools are invested in the student just as much as the student is invested in the process. And they do not want to have an open seat. They do not want to have a class not filled. And so they will call clear into like the second or third week, like to get somebody in that spot. And that person has to do some catching up for sure. But I think that that's an investment in the student. So, it stinks to be on a wait list sometimes.
Oh yeah, it's awful. It's
You
awful.
feel like the world just stinks a little bit more, you're like, okay, I was at least good enough to get an interview. I was at least good enough to get on a wait list. Why couldn't I be picked?
Yeah.
And then when you do get pulled up, though, it's also probably reassuring and relaxing.
Oh yeah. It's it'll be one of the best days of your life when you get accepted.
So,
Up to that point.
yeah.
Yeah.
So McKenna, there's a lot of hurrying up and waiting.
When I was in college, my whole thought process revolved around I need to get into dental school. Once I got into dental school and school started, I didn't have anything to shoot for after that, which was okay at first, but as school went on, wasn't all that helpful because classmates had stuff to shoot for. They had goals that they already knew that they needed to achieve in their life with dentistry. So be thinking about those things too, because they're going to ask about them on interview day. They're going to ask about what you see your future as a dentist and not just as a dental student.
Other questions for Dr. Sanger?
Keep in touch with a lot of like your colleagues that you have from school or people that you've met like here in dentistry.
I don't keep in touch with my classmates so much anymore. I do keep in touch with some dentists that I've met or worked with along the way since graduating, and that's been great. And dentists will gravitate towards each other because they all talk the same language. Nobody else talks that language in the world. But there are a lot of study clubs, stuff like that. And when you go on CE trips for your continuing education purposes, you meet new friends and build new relationships. I think my best friend in dentistry is an associate doctor that I worked with in Pullman, Washington. And I haven't seen him in person in about a year and a half, but we talk every day still. Yeah.
Other questions?
Did you feel like you were able to have a social life during dental school?
Yeah. The first year really sucks. There were weeks where I would spend 80 hours on schoolwork. Not all schools are like Utah. Utah, it was 40 hours of class time every week, and you had to be there when I went there. Nowadays, they probably do video as an option, I bet, because of COVID, but.
They started back up this year, so that during the pandemic itself, like the big chunk of it where we were quarantined, yes, they had to jump on the online focus, but they're back in class now this year, so.
So we had to be there for 40 hours a week in class, 8 to 5 days a week. That was brutal. And then you would have to study outside of that. But the people that want to go into like ortho, for instance, they will work their butts off. And some of them didn't have a social life for the first couple of years. I could not do that. So I allowed myself to have a social life, and I let my grades suffer a little bit for it. Instead of getting A's, I got B's. But on your diploma hanging in your office, nobody's going to see what your GPA is. They're just going to know how good your dentistry is and how painless it is or whatnot, how friendly you are. So yeah, you can have a social life in dental school. It just depends on how you want to do and your goals and whatnot.
Well, and also with what Jordan was sharing with Utah with the 3+1, their first 3 years are tight. I think your first semester is 23 credits, if I remember correctly, or 29.
Our first semester was 36 credits, and spring semester was 34. And then our summer semester was 15.
So, I mean, it might be a little different in other schools too, but at the same token, that's the purpose, is to get you to that clinical aspect a little sooner. So you put the work in on the front end so that you can gain some of those opportunities on the back end for sure.
Yeah.
Jordan, did you have a family over at Utah?
No, just my friends.
Did you know was there anybody in your class that did?
Oh yeah. Yeah, well, about 2/3 of my class was LDS, or is LDS, I should say. And so some of them had kids going into it. In fact, we have 27 students in our class. The people that had kids, they gave birth to 21 children, I think, in our 4 years. 21 kids were born during our 4 years of dental school from just our class. Yeah. Wild.
Other questions? Do you like dentistry still?
I like the dentistry. The people management can be difficult. I'll be honest. And I think a lot of dentists will say that. I've yet to meet a dentist that says they that they don't have staff issues. They don't have any issues with their team. They always have some kind of issue with their team, always at any given time. And it's always this fire that has to be put out.
Well, I can respect that. I mean, when you're working in small offices with lots of people and
Yeah, a lot of women,
a lot of personalities.
mostly women. Yeah, yeah. The female doctor that I know, she owns 2 offices in Boise. And before I joined, it was all female staff at both offices. And even she had a lot of fires to put out all the time.
Makes sense. And you mentioned that implants are probably one of your most favorite things. Both of yours touched on a second.
Crowns.
Crowns.
Yeah, I like crowns. Crowns are, yeah, crowns are good. They encompass a lot of different skills, clinical skills, hand skills. And you can tell the doctors that know how to do them well from ones that don't know how to do them well. And if you're fast at it, it's even better. So.
Other questions? What's your least favorite thing to this dance besides the business stuff?
Least favorite thing, wisdom teeth. I thought for sure I would love to do wisdom teeth when I went to dental school. And I went to the Dominican Republic on 2 humanitarian trips, where most of the trip was extracting teeth. And Dominicans have very dense bone, big teeth, they're hard to get numb, and they're usually rotted off at the gum line, and so they're hard to get out. So I thought wisdom teeth should be pretty simple for me. I hate wisdom teeth. I don't want to do any wisdom teeth ever again. Any of those patients I get, I just send them to the oral surgeon. Yeah.
Other questions?
Wait, why do you dislike them so much?
Why do you dislike this one so much?
There is, so many of them are hard to get out for me. And with that, the harder they are to get out, the more post-op pain they're gonna have, or post-op complications they're gonna maybe have. And that weighs heavy on my mind. So when I used to do them, when I would walk in to the office that day, and I would just look at the schedule and see that I had that on my schedule for the day, it would just put me in a bad mood all day because I was dreading it. I was dreading the potential problems that could come from it. Yeah.
So what it sounds like you're sharing with us is that you care enough about your patients to say, I don't want them to go through the aftermath.
All right.
And so
Yeah.
it's not that you can't do it, it's that you don't want to create that extra uncomfortable, you don't want them to feel like, gosh, I don't want to ever come back to the dentist office. This is a bad
Yeah.
experience. So,
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think the things that dentists refer out that they don't like doing, they do it for 2 reasons. One, they just don't want to do it because maybe they're not good at it or they're not fast enough at it. 2, they want their patients to have the best quality work for that procedure. And why not send them out to somebody that can do better? Yeah.
Makes sense. Does that answer your question, Ashley? Others? Well, I want to be mindful of Dr. Sanger's time. I really appreciate him coming to talk to all of you and give a new and different perspective. He also said something I think I want to reiterate. He works right here in the Treasure Valley. And he said, Kuna is far away. It's not. It's not that far. I drove from Caldwell every single day for 10 years. It's 30 minutes. It's not far. It's not far. And it's a cool opportunity to see a unique office that works in, CUNA itself is meant to be rural, but I mean, it's very close to the Treasure Valley area to Boise. And so he has offered his time, and he did our alumni spotlight, and I'm more than happy to send his contact information your way so that you can get a hold of him if you would like. Okay,
Yeah, and I'll leave some of my cards with you as well.
Great.
So if anybody wants them.
great.
We, out in CUNA, there's the Swan Falls High School. And they do a lot of different programs for students, for high school students. And they have a dental assisting program. They have 20 kids in it. And they are already set up to do their externship rotation through our office in the spring. So that just goes to show that, we love it when people come in and ask us questions and want to know what we're doing. That's a highlight for me. When people come in, I love answering questions, or showing people dentistry and explaining things and teaching. So yeah, come on out.
All right, well, lastly, we probably need to figure out what you guys want to do about meeting. Maybe what McKenna and Zach and Wyatt and Courtney can do is email out. You guys can, as officers, figure out what you want to do for December. If it's an evening program or a morning program, whatever works for the December meeting. Just be aware that the 13th through the 18th is finals. So some of you may have opted to go home or almost done with your schoolwork at that point. So try and do it before then. And also just be aware, the upperclassmen cohort group that we have that meets will be doing a mentorship mixer. So if you're interested in either becoming a mentee or a mentor, you can come to that. It's Thursday the 8th at 5 o'clock, and we'll be running it in this room 117. The application cohort group, I moved the meeting to the 6th, so that if anybody is in the application process next year, we're going to be talking about writing up your experiences in a better way. So that is all I have. McKenna, or I don't think Zach's in today. So McKenna, do you have anything else to add?
No, sounds good to me.
All right, guys. Well, stay in touch, and let's give her a applause. Thank you. Right. Have a good day, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.